And on the punchline tonight, Yvonne tried to give you some leakage. She can't serve in the neck under Matiangi. So tonight I want to talk about obedience. It is one of the virtues that we all learn from very early stages of growing up. In fact, we all grew up knowing that obedience is rewarded and disobedience punished. Obedient children are deemed likable, warm, and even favored in some instances, but disobedient children are truants, are frowned upon, and generally do not attract special treatment. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary definition of obedience is an act or instance of obeying or the quality of state of being obedient. It is compliance, submission, and subordination to authority and lawful orders. The Cambridge Dictionary defines obedience as doing or willing to do what you have been told to do by someone in authority. A government expects obedience of lawful orders by its citizenry. Otherwise, anarchy and lawlessness would prevail. But what if the government itself is disobedient and has no regard for court orders? How would such a government expect obedience from its citizenry? Elizabeth Missing Sewell, an English author of religious and educational texts, said, and I quote, "Obedience is the primary object of all sound education," end of quote. The government's failure to obey a litany of court orders in favor of self-declared National Resistance Movement General Miguna is simply bad manners. By cherry-picking the court orders that it can respect or disrespect, comply with or ignore is nothing but setting a dangerous precedent in a country that must at all times be guided by the rule of law. And it also speaks volumes about the state and character of our leadership. In fact, Robert Lee, an 18th century American soldier, may have had the Kenyan government in mind when he said, and I quote, "Obedience to lawful authority is the foundation of manly character," end of quote. In January last year, the Employment and Labor Relations Court ordered teachers to call off their intended strike and report to work on as earlier directed by the Teacher Service Commission. The government was quick to welcome the court order and asked the teachers to respect the directives. A month later, the same court ordered striking nurses to report back to work, and President Uhuru Kenyatta threatened them with sacking should they fail to report to their respective workstations. The president at that time told the striking nurses, and I quote, "One of the most important principles upon which our republic is established is rule of law. No one is above the law. Obeying court orders is not optional, but a requirement to all of us," end of quote. What changed? Where is the rule of law? Is anyone, particularly at the office of the president, now above the law? Why is obedience of court orders now optional in the Jubilee administration and no longer a requirement for all, the government included? If the government leads its citizens in choosing which court orders to obey or not to, will the judiciary remain the arbiter in disputes between wananchi or the safe haven whenever citizens' rights are violated by the state? What am I saying? The government must lead in obeying court orders. If it does not, and blatantly so, then it justifies impunity and outrightly encourages it, which essentially makes lawlessness, as opposed to the rule of law, the national character. And because I'm an altar boy emeritus, let me remind the government about the very short quote from St. Teresa of Avila. And it says, "I know the power obedience has of making things easy which seem impossible." So have an obedient night and an equally obedient weekend ahead. That's my punchline.